Hi all, I have another The Digital User 5 question interview. It is my pleasure to sit down with and talk with Robert Kim, the Chief Technology Officer of Presidio. Robert has been with Presidio for the past 8 years and is a key driver behind their digital practice. During our chat, it was clear that Presidio is really driving innovation in the digital employee experience and has put a huge focus on developing AI into all their solutions. But let's just dive into and listen to Robert and the key insights of Presidio. On there, you're busy, and so you're quite busy. So, thanks for joining me today, Robert, for this interview. Could you tell me a bit about yourself and your role within Presidio, just to put some context around the questions?
Yeah, sure. I've been at Presidio now. I joke, I call it my 8th season. I can't believe it's been 8 years. My original charter really was to help build out our digital practice, which I would say encompasses data applications and obviously what we do from a cloud perspective. And that includes the larger CSPs, AWS, Azure, Google. Obviously, fast forwarding now 8 years, we've seen quite a transition and transformation of the organization, and now currently serve as the Chief Technology Officer. So, I have the pleasure of spending a lot of time in the field with our clients to learn more about the things that they're particularly challenged with when it comes to the whole business and technology integration. And then utilize a lot of those stories to go back to our leadership teams to figure out where can we continue to make the right investments to provide relevant solutions back to them in solving those challenges. Oh, I don't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Just speaking of those relevant solutions and for our customers and stuff like that, given Presidio's reputation in innovation and excellence, highlighted by the partnership now with NHL over the past couple of years, like how's Presidio uniquely positioned to guide customers through the adoption of a digital employee experience strategy, and have any insights around kind of like how the approach would be offered?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that I would say is that our design philosophy is really around the complete user experience. So not necessarily just the employee, but all of the constituents within that circle, right? So whether it's on the consumer or the constituent side, right? How are we providing an experience digitally that is personal and tailored to that constituent? All the way through, again, to the employee experience, which is essentially providing technology in order to put them in a position to be more empowered, right? Give them more productivity, as well as making sure that we're creating an environment of well-being. And then also having the keen understanding around things like the user experience. Is it easy to use and multi-experience? Which is all in our world about accessibility. And that's both for the digital native as much as it is for the digital novice, right? People that grew up with technology and people that haven't, because at the end of the day, we're serving, both constituents. And for us, we refer to that as our Presidio total experience, because we do believe an organization's digital experience is probably the primary and critical component on how they differentiate their goods or services moving forward.
And do you have any kind of instance or examples of where Presidio has integrated DEX into offerings? Like what were the key challenges faced and these experiences that could benefit future projects?
Yeah, I think there's many different examples to choose from, and I do think that they vary based on sector and industry. If you think about what occurred during the pandemic and the need to very quickly stand up capabilities to support a big influx of requests coming into state, city, township agencies, our ability to very quickly stand up support sites that you can access in a multitude of different ways, integrate newer AI technologies like Amazon Connect or Google Vertex CCAI, what we did around integrating robotic process automation to automate a lot of these workflows, and then utilizing these virtual assistants from a Gen AI perspective in order to be able to reduce the amount of call volume for the agents, right? Which is translating into better efficiencies for them, for the case agents to handle the most critical issues versus the ones that tend to be more redundant. And that reduction in call flow is also helping with situations around employee turnover because of burnout and things of that sort. So our contact center customer experience practice obviously have adopted these newer technologies in order to be able to help our client organizations get better scale, right? That's really the bigger key. And also in the end, get the right information to our end user constituents as well, because obviously that has an impact around satisfaction and impact. Another example that we had for one of the largest cities in America is deploying a solution where we were able to provide voice-based attestation as an example. In the ability to be able to access federal funding in a quicker way. And we were able to provide reductions in time, and sometimes would be measured in a couple of weeks. And for somebody that is, getting subsidized benefits for food or for Medicare, obviously that's that's a huge time frame. In the case of our clients that are private in nature, for them, the digital experience has become increasingly more important because it's not only about the commerce component of that, right? I think coming out of the pandemic, the other thing that we saw was the number of transactions that were happening digitally versus brick and mortar finally hit the majority curve, right? And so that experience that we're providing from an e-commerce perspective and how we're providing differentiation there is critical for those commercial agencies. But also, how do we create brand reputation, increase that brand loyalty, get more fans to adopt these mobile fan experience platforms? And obviously that's all through better programmatic understanding of how we hyper personalize and tailor these experiences to the consumer. And projects that we've done with large scale organizations like the NHL that you had mentioned are the ways that we've demonstrated that.
Yeah, so I think you may have touched on a lot of the points in my next question, but I'll ask it anyway to see what is. So as we move into 24, DEX is set to play a pivotal role in a lot of digital strategies. What comprehensive plans does Presidio have to place to assist clients adopting DEX, also mastering and achieving these business objectives? How do you envision these plans in enhancing customers' engagement and operational efficiency? And now AI, how is that going to play into that? That's the big one a lot this year too.
Well, I think, look, we're not saying anything new here by saying that we are an organization that believes AI is a seminal and consequential technology. We've felt that way, quite honestly, ever since I've been here at Presidio. And the birth of the transformer model in 2017 by those Google researchers, and seeing what it's become with the formation of these larger language models, allowing us to do interesting things around generative AI. It's not only extremely consequential, but it's inevitable. I had the pleasure of speaking to one of our state subcommittee on AI and cybersecurity. And all of the conversation was, how do we continue to provide a level of innovation for our teams, our knowledge workers, but do so in a governed fashion? So I think those are the components that we really want to make sure that we stress when we design these solutions. And part of it is just getting much more literacy around the technology. And so we have established our own AI committees internally, both from an innovation and governance perspective. It's a key critical component to how we address the fact that everything now is much more hyper personalized. And because of that, how we differentiate these experiences are not as easy as it may have been, and the rapid pace of how fast these things are moving. And so the piece specific to the employee is, how can we start to think about things in terms of the business requirements? How do we modernize data estates so that when case agents are handling a support issue, that they have the maximum amount of data available to them that's relevant for that particular call? And how can we utilize these AI technologies to, in real time, provide these case agents with empowerment to make decisions that might include things that are out of the norm? The example we like to give is our implementation of AI technologies allowed us to be able to provide real-time analysis of calls, and also in real time allow decisions to be made to empower the end user case agent to provide larger rebates to the customer, provide free services, whereas the typical rule sets wouldn't allow them to do so, but doing so dynamically based on the situation, that individual's situation that occurred. And this is the way that we think we can improve the experience for both the consumer constituent as well as the employee.
Thanks for that. Like I myself, like I try to use AI in any aspect that I do, because I know it's going to be critical going forward. That now in all walks of life, you're going to have to be familiar with it. So in everything that I do now, I try to see how AI, the tools like ChatGPT, all of them can help me be quicker, faster, better, and stuff like that. And it's made such a difference to me in some of the stuff that I've been able to do over the past year. And even at that, like I was watching some videos on the chatbot for security and the what it can do. And I think during it, they were saying that new employees are 40% quicker and faster to onboard and to be more effective, and experienced engineers using it were 14% quicker and faster and easier to diagnose stuff. So it's going to be a big game changer.
Yeah,
Uh,
and you're certainly seeing a lot of that productivity boost in a multitude of different areas, and I think you're going to see such an acceleration of our ability to produce new technologies because of what's been afforded to us around just the foundational nature of generative AI. I mean, and the thing about AI that's great is it's no different than a calculator. If you think about, we all know how to do math, but look, I think we can all say, outside of a very short few people in the world, that we can't do math faster than a calculator. And so utilizing AI as a tool to advance what we can do in terms of synthesizing, summarizing, extracting relevant points out of data, and in some ways, providing a creative starting point to a lot of the content that we develop, this is only going to help accelerate our creativity and our innovation.
I completely agree with you there. Like I think it's going to be game changing over the next year or two, if not just this year. Uh, you probably covered a lot of the questions, so I'm just going to skip to my last question here. For organizations embarking on DEX strategy with Presidio, what are the recommended initial steps, or no, to start that partnership and that approach? What's the approach there for customers?
Yeah, I think taking the philosophy that we discussed at the beginning, right, the complete experience, starting with understanding the consumer, and not just from a private entity or commercial perspective. It could be public entities as well, right? Because your consumer could be an agency, it could be your constituents. Obviously, for the private sector and the commercial side, it would be more the consumer. So how can I think about attaching back the things that are most relevant, the reason why we utilize technology in the first place, increasing our ability to have brand loyalty, or in the case of public works, how do we increase the ease of use around the support services that we are delivering, to make it so that our constituents are using it and adopting it in much more of a rapid fashion. And then utilizing technologies to make sure on the other side of the scale, right, the digital employee perspective, to make sure that we're providing better span of control. We're providing all of the pieces that allow them to do their jobs better. And a lot of that rooted in the way that we present data into more informational insights. The fact that we need to start to get a bit more creative in the way that we deliver the connection between the employee and then obviously the external consumer, however you define those two entities. And that all does come down to the whole user and multi experience, right? So the accessibility, AR, VR, obviously a lot more conversations around that. Is that something that should be investigated and explored as technology continues to accelerate in its improvement? Obviously, improvements that we're making in converting all of these disparate data sources to be able to get true informational insight. And in many cases, being able to predict what it is that these consumers need before they utter one word to the case agent. These are all components that will help make a sound, comprehensive digital employee experience that takes into consideration really more the outcomes that you're trying to deliver. And marrying those business pieces to the technology components, I think is critical.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like the main approach or the biggest obstacle for a lot of companies out there is going from that old traditional SLA kind of is everything up? What's the standard performance to really kind of how do we take that and flip it to how is it affecting the user and is the end user is everything working for that end user? And that's going to be a challenge for a lot of companies because it's a different mindset to think in that way.
Yeah, I think the enhancements that we have with AI, generative AI, as additional tools in our arsenal, certainly is also changing the way that we think we can iterate. We can do these things much faster, right? And I think you're seeing that with the pace of change that we're seeing. I mean, if you listen to NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, when he, during the GTC keynote, I mean, they're utilizing AI to actually help develop the next set of chips. So AI is almost in many ways helping to develop itself. And how we have to make sure that we're doing that with a level of governance and oversight from a human perspective so that we don't run into issues that we typically hear about in the news when guardrails aren't paid attention to. But that level of speed, it's exciting and scary at the same time. But I guess what I would say is putting your head in the sand and trying to spend more time in resisting is not something that makes sense. I mean, a lot of what you hear now with AI was said during the early 1990s about the internet. And I think if you
I would
fast
agree
forward,
with that about the internet. I would agree with
yeah,
that.
fast forward 20 years and what have we seen, right? Imagine our world now without the internet. Imagine the pandemic without the internet. It's pretty amazing to consider.
Well, so one thing that I would say is back when people had all the fears about the internet, what they were scared of was nothing compared to what the internet turned into.
Yeah.
And I could say that with AI, what people see AI now and what they look to the future, what it will be, I am 100% sure it will not be what we think it will be. How it's going to integrate into our lives and how it's going to be used and how it looks is going to be very different than what we think right now. Same as the internet, it's so different.
Yeah, no, I would agree to that. And I think for Presidio, we have we had and continue to have those same fears around, well, what does this mean to us? It's fundamentally changed the way that we think about investment strategy and how we expand and scale our services out to our clients, right? Especially if you think about the impact of AI, where a lot of the achievable outcomes that you're seeing are in things like code assistants and AI developers, areas that obviously we provide a lot of services for. And you know, I'm glad to be working for such a forward-thinking organization that even though that fear existed, we did all that we could to make sure that we investigated these technologies, and the fact that we're incorporating these technologies not only in the tactical pieces of how we help solve the application development challenges for our clients, and we're doing so faster and in many cases much more cost efficiently, but the fact that we're also doing so in the ways that we're looking at future investments that we do more acquisitively, to continue to bolster the sets of offerings that we provide to our clients in solving these challenges.
I'm excited to see what comes out of all that. To be very interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I have no more questions for now. Is there anything else that you want to add, or do you want to I want to thank you very much for taking the time out for this. I know how busy you are so much appreciated. So is there anything else you want to add before we finish up?
No, I like. Well, first off, thank you for having me. It was obviously a pleasure to spend time talking to you, and I'm glad and I appreciate you accommodating obviously some scheduling challenges that we had. For your audience and for others, what I would say is, look to Presidio no differently than you would look to any other advisor or confidant. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily that we have all of the smartest people, but what we can say is that we bring a lot of experience to the table, because our value is the fact that we are iterating and implementing and designing these solutions across so many different client industries, across the vast number of the 6,000 plus clients that we have. And so learn from our mistakes, because we make some, and in many ways, I think working with us will help accelerate a lot of these initiatives that you have on the table, specifically when it comes to any sort of technology transformation.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Robert. Very much appreciated.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.